Okay, so we're on lesson 8 for multiplying and dividing integers. And when we're multiplying, we're going to be looking at groups. We're going to look at a group and then how many groups we have. So if we have 4 positives inside a group and we have 2 groups of them, we're going to have a total of 8. Let's take a look at the next example here. What do we have inside our group? What's inside our group? 4 negatives or -4. So we're going to shade in. Shaded is going to be negative. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4. There's one group. 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's another group. And so this tells us that we have 2 groups of -4. And so how many negatives do we have altogether? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So what it's saying is 2 times 4 is 8. And then if they're just regular groups, 2 groups of 4 negatives is going to be -8. Now, this next one, we're going to borrow the idea of opposites. But let's start with our groups. What do we have inside the group? 4 positives. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so we got 1, 2, 3, 4. And what this number is saying is they're negative groups. Well, negative also means opposite of positive. So we have 2 groups, but they're negative groups. So what it's really saying is we have 2 opposite groups. And what's the opposite of 8 negatives? Or I said that wrong. What's the opposite of 8 positives? 8 negatives. So we're going to make these opposite groups because this is a negative over here. And so that's going to give us -8. And we watched the Edpuzzle video on Friday. Most of us should have got to it. And what we noticed is if we multiply 2 times 4 is 8, and if we only have one negative, then our product is -8. 2 times 4 is 8, and if we only have one negative, then our product is negative. What's going to happen when we have opposite groups of negative? There we go. There you go. They're going to be positive. So the last example for today. Start with how many groups you have or what's inside the group. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. There's one group of 4, and it says we need 2 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's 2 groups of -4. And this says to make, because that's negative, it says make opposite groups. I just realized my Chromebook came with a stylus, and it took me 4 weeks to realize maybe I should use it. I've been using my finger for the previous 3 weeks. All right, so this negative out here tells us to make them opposite groups. And opposite groups of negatives, if you have negative groups of negatives, that sounds confusing. So let's say if we have opposite groups of negatives, what's that going to be? Positive. The opposite of 8 negatives, because we have a second negative here, it tells us to do the opposite. This is actually going to be +8. Bless you. So I'm going to leave that up there for right now. Once you have that in your notes, go to the next item in the menu, click on Braining Camp. So this year, there's a bunch of new stuff that Klein is making available to students. Braining Camp is new to you guys. I've been using it for years. Love it. Big fan of it. Instead of doing all the manipulatives like the physical stuff on your desk, we can now do all that stuff online. So click on Braining Camp, and that should the next link here. I'm leaving this up here so students can finish. So go into Monday, week 4 Monday, and then click on the Braining Camp. Once you click on Braining Camp, go down to the number line. We're going to use the number line manipulative today. It's pretty cool. Well, as a math teacher, to me, it's pretty cool. Some students would be like, oh, it's just more math work. What are you talking about? Yeah, let me turn the sound back up. Go ahead.
Can you go a little up?
Yes. All right, so you're on the second example. So this -4 is what you have inside the group. You have 4 negatives, and the 2 times that means you have 2 groups of them. So 2 times 4 is 8. They're all negative, so your answer is -8. Here you have 4 groups of positives, 4 and 4. And then because you're making negative groups of them, you're making opposite groups. 2 times 4 is 8. And the negative of positives would also be negative. So once you click on Braining Camp, click on number lines, and we're going to model that out. All right, I'm going to have to clear this off. If you were not finished with this, then click on the quarter 1 lessons, and it's always going to be in there. I uploaded it already. So if you want to check your notes, make sure it's there. This is lesson 8, and we need to move on for today. It's right down here. The completed lessons are right here for page 10. Okay, so let's get into the Braining Camp part of things. Sorry, mine's running a little bit slow. All right, week 4. Here we go. Monday. Internet's running a little slow. I'm going to right click on this because I got to stay on my same page here. Okay, so we're going to go Braining Camp number lines. Braining Camp number lines, and then click on number lines. So once you get to number lines, you're going to have to set it up a little bit. So down at the bottom, let's do -15. So click down here on the left slider. Instead of moving it around, click the little number and do -15. -15. It's going to set up our number line. So now the left one is -15, and then the positive one, we don't need 100. Let's just do +15. Here, actually, I'm looking at the numbers that we're working with. We could probably actually do 10. Here, let's do -10. -10 and +10. Then it'll be a little bit bigger. check your labels here. If this is not, sometimes it'll skip count. Set this on 1. So it's labeled every one unit. Oh, awesome. Oh, you got this. Okay, perfect. Okay, so now grab the little blue tag. So this is a pin drop. I'm going to call this a pin drop. And let's go ahead and put that at 0. So students online, are you guys on Braining Camp? Is it working for y'all? Yes? Okay, cool. I see some head shaking. I see some thumbs up. Awesome. I'm excited about this. I love Braining Camp. I've used it for years. Um, Klein has got it authorized, so we're going to be using it. All right, so let's look at our first example. Looking at our notebook, we used +2 times +4. So there's a little marker down here. In order to use it, you got to click on it. In order to put it back, you got to click back down there. Okay? Then you can also change the color if you want. Okay? But we're not going to get into that too much. So we're going to use the jumps. So get one of the green jumps. Over here on the left menu, get a green jump. Start at 0, and then you're going to have to drag. You're going to have to drag that, or when you click on it, you can calculate it, and you can just do +4. Let me just do 2 just to show you what I'm talking about. So if you click on it, instead of dragging it, you can actually type in what you want it to be. So we have groups of 4, and then how many groups do we have? Class, how many do we have? Two groups of 4. So if you click on it and you click copy, the little plus sign, it'll double it. So if we have +4 and +4 all together, we're going to have what? +8. No issues there, right? You guys did that in elementary school. 2 times 4 gives you 8. Okay. Listen up. Down below here, how do I get? Sorry, I'm going to have to minimize here. This little menu is in the way. How do I get it? There's a clear all button down on the left. Right behind here, push the clear all button. Okay, so it's not letting me do it. There it is. Okay. And I'll just use the eraser for what I need. So I like to use the clear all in order to reset because I'm recording for this lesson. So look at the next one. So the next one says we have 2 groups of -4. So we're going to start with -4 jumps. So what you can do is you can actually click on that and then switch it to negative. And we can delete this one and then just copy. There we go. So we've got -4 and we have 2 groups of them. So -4 and -4, what's that going to give us? -8. Okay, that's supposed to be a -8. So we modeled with the counters. Now we're modeling with the number line. Okay, I'm moving right along because I want to get to the practice. So the next one we had 2 opposite groups of 4. -2 groups of 4 positives. So what that's saying is 2 opposite groups. So what does that mean? Let's start with the positive. So if we go over here and we start with +4, that's what we have for our groups. We have +4. Is everyone with me on that? Inside the groups, we're starting with 4 positives. And we got 2 groups of them. But wait a minute. This says negative 2 groups of those 4 positives. What's the negative of a positive? Or what's the opposite of a positive? So what it's really saying is you have to switch these groups to be the opposite. And so what that's really saying is negative 2, if you have 2 negative groups of 4 positives, what you really have is, again, you have negative 8. And I'm actually going to leave this model on here because it's going to help us out with the last one. Maybe it's easier just to use the eraser instead of clearing it each time. I didn't think about that. So the last example from our notebook is negative 2 times negative 4. So inside the group, we have 4 negatives, but we need to make them opposite groups. So what's the opposite? It's kind of like having another negative out here. What's the opposite of negative 4 and negative 4? Class, what's the opposite of 8 negatives? Positive 8. So what this is really saying is if you have double negatives, the opposite of negatives, when you see that, we're just going to switch it. And what it's really saying is it's really saying we have positive 8. So our rule for today is if we have one negative, then our answer is going to be negative. If we have two negatives or we have double negatives, then our answer is going to be positive. Okay, let's check the time here. So we got 15 minutes here. Let's just do 5 minutes on IXL, and then we can get to the exit ticket. So let's close that out. And I need to put the IXL in here. Go, make sure you log in. Go back to the Wednesday folder, or what am I talking about? Wednesday. Go back to the Monday folder, and then click on Login to IXL, and then click on the Multiplying Integers IXL practice. So I'm just going to go through a couple examples for the recording for the video here. So what's, real quick, just multiply the numbers, integer, multiplication, division. The operation doesn't change. So in this example, what's 6 times 3? 6 times 3 will give us 18. And then there's only one negative, so the answer is going to be negative 18. What's 6 times 7? 6 times 7 is 42. And that's why we have our multiplication table in for the homework tonight, because I have not talked to you guys about multiplication facts at all this year. So this week we're going to brush up on our multiplication facts. So 6 times 7 is 42, and double negatives is going to be positive. So you have two negatives, your answer is going to be positive. You can put the positive in there, or you could just leave it as 42. So I'll put it in there just to show you that it does work as well. Positive 42 or just 42. All right, we got this. What's 3 times 3? Come on now, class. 3 times 3 is 9. There's one negative, so 3 positives. There's only one negative in that multiplication problem, so that means you're going to have 9 negatives. 3 times 3 is 9, and then that's, so negative 5 times negative 4. 4 times 5 is 20, and negative times negative will make them back into positives. Okay, that's all we're doing. So right now, make sure you're doing at least 20 questions. If you want to go for that perfect score, then I think it's 28 questions. But do at least 20 questions and then go to the exit ticket.